What's happening, everybody? Hope that you're doing well. I am here in Marrakesh, Morocco, and today I was really just kind of chilling today. I've been running so much over the past, since actually mid-March, nonstop, from Ghana to Nigeria to Tanzania, and while in Tanzania, Zanzibar, then hopped over to Kenya, and then to Seychelles. And so now, here in Morocco. And I still have a little ways to go, still have 3 more countries to visit before I get back to the States and before we start getting back into our tours. And so today I said, I was just going to chill. So I kind of was in bed and working at the same time. But, and that's why I haven't been able to go live as much as I'd like to. And there are just so many things that I've seen on this journey. Since Ghana, and then from there, in Nigeria, I shared a lot there, and I'm just going to, I'm processing all of it. You can't put it all together in one swoop, so it takes time to put it all together. So that's what you see me doing, and I can tell you that there's so many wonderful people that I've met on this journey. It's fascinating the people that you meet along the way. And if you listen to what people say, you'll miss out on some of the most enriching experiences of your life, because somebody will say, oh, they don't like you, or don't go because I heard that they this, or I heard that they that. But those people, either maybe they went, maybe they had a bad experience and now they're sharing it, which is, obviously their prerogative. But it's like, even my negative experiences cannot even touch the overwhelming positive experiences that I have. And I can share negative experiences in every situation. I can share, like yesterday here in Morocco, which is like little Europe, if you will. I ordered room service, and the room service never came. Now, if I harp on that, oh man, the room service never came, then I would have missed out on the wonderful dinner that I had, the excellent customer service that I received, the general manager coming and saying, hey, we want to apologize. If I harp on that negative moment, then I could miss out on so much more. So with all of that said, there's so many wonderful experiences. One thing I miss about Kenya, because I didn't get a chance, and I'm going to share more about Kenya. We showed a lot from the safari, but I went to a place in Kenya they call it a slum. But when I was there, and slum is according to Western standards and all of that, when I was there, those people had everything they needed. And if we really took a lesson from them, there's a lot to learn. They had community. Although their homes might not have been built the way that people in the West are accustomed to, they had plenty of water, plenty of food, nobody was hungry, they had toilets. It was really, really a fascinating place to be, and everyone was so nice. Everyone was so nice, and no one was asking for money, and nobody was, hey, can you do this, can you do that? It's like, hey, welcome to our community. And that was something that I'll always cherish about Kenya. And this is outside of the luxury and the 5-star places that I saw. That was the place that enriched me the most, because there were those lessons that are priceless. And so you can find wealth anywhere. Wealth is not necessarily monetary. Wealth can be just how people live and the peace they have. So it doesn't mean that there aren't challenges, and not dismissing the challenges, because I know a lot of times people want to say, yeah, but this is what's going on, and you want to point out all the negative things that are happening within in a particular space. But I found a real appreciation in that moment for those people. Let me see if I can do this without triggering it to cut off. Just being in that space. So shout out to Kenya and Nairobi. Looking forward to coming back and spending time with you. All right. Y'all ready? Are you 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 ready? I got some sleep. I got some sleep, so I'm ready. I'm ready. All right, let's walk into this. One, want to welcome all of our new subscribers. Thank you for joining the family here at Maximum Impact with Jay Cameron. If you're someone who is looking to hear a different perspective, definitely not saying that I am the guru who knows all, the be all, or anything like that, but sharing from a worldview and a perspective that oftentimes a lot of people don't get a chance to hear on both sides of the Atlantic and into the Indian Ocean. So sharing these experiences as someone who was conditioned by Western culture to not be interested in the continent of Africa, and even to the point of even denying my African heritage. You know, I didn't, but that's what they were trying to push to say, hey, you know what? You know, do all you can to you be American, but don't be African. Be anything but don't be African. So, but when you get over there and you get to places like Nigeria and Sierra Leone and Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana and Togo and Benin, you realize that it's for me, especially in Nigeria, if I don't have DNA that comes from there, then I don't know what's going on. And everybody from Nigeria says the same thing. Igbo, everybody. Even when I was in Kenya, in Seychelles, brother said, nah, you're an Igbo man. So I said, all right. So when the indigenous people recognize it, hey, it is what it is. So, but I want to talk about something today that I know it's going to ruffle the feathers, and y'all know I don't care. So put on your seatbelts and let's go. All right. And this is what I'm realizing, especially in the last couple of videos that I've done. When people lose the ability to fight, there's something behind that. And that's what I hear in a lot of comments when I talked about fake independence, when I talk about colonization, when I talk about certain things. It only comes from certain parts of the continent. But when I talk about those things, that you can tell that there's some people who have lost their ability to fight. And so the perspective I come from is this. Because there's this kumbaya, Hakuna Matata mentality that is unfortunate. And I believe it's rooted in several different things. But let me just take you back a little bit, because one thing that I've heard several times, and it only comes from a certain part of Africa. I don't hear this in other parts of Africa, where they're quick to say, go back home, leave us alone, don't, shut up and go back, leave us alone. And so the thing I said to those people is, why aren't you so fast to say that to the people who are stealing from you and stealing your resources and stealing your people to this day, coming in and saddling you with debt? Why don't you go tell them to go back? But the reality is, guess what? You're not gonna run me out. So that's, you can tell me that all day long. It's just gonna embolden me, because that mindset is indicative of the very problem that I'm gonna talk about today. See, the reality is, for many people who are part of the African diaspora, whether you're from America, the UK, the Caribbean, South America, Australia, wherever you are, and you've been dispersed throughout the world, we have ancestors who died fighting for freedom on the continent of Africa that we're not even aware of. We don't even understand the battles that many fought against the Dutch in South Africa. And whether we're genetically related to them or not, this was a continent-wide issue where you had people in East Africa battling the Germans and battling the British and battling the Italians. You had them in West Africa battling the French and the Germans and the Dutch and the Swiss. And so there were people who were fighting. I'm gonna come to America in a second, but I'm just dealing with Africa. Because many of us who are part of the African diaspora are disconnected from this reality. I know that those people who put up a fight against those interests, and even against those who were indigenous to Africa, who were enslaving and doing that, because it's very complex. Again, one thing that happens is people say, yeah, them Africans sold y'all into slavery, and it was so many different ethnic groups and so many layers to this thing that to try to reduce it to that it doesn't do it justice, because there were so many layers of ethnic conflicts that were being exploited. There were mergers between indigenous and colonizers in order to fight, and it wasn't because they necessarily wanted to, it's because they almost didn't have a choice. But that's a whole different kind of conversation. But just to help everybody understand, it wasn't as simple as they sold so-and-so into slavery and all of that. And I always remind people, even if that were the case, there was still someone left behind who was grieving the loss of a child or a family member who was shipped off to Brazil or the Caribbean, or finally to the what we know as America. So there was that dynamic that was taking place where there was grief that was still occurring here on the continent for those who were taken. But because the way that we think is modern day context, we don't understand it. So there are so many people out there holding offenses against people who they shouldn't even be holding offenses against, because they're grieving the same way the person who was taken is grieving. And oftentimes what happens is the culprit is the one who gets off the hook. Then the innocent people get the blame. And I see that recurring theme even today. So when I go back to those who were fighting, there were people who resisted heavily. I think about the Amistad and the Temene and the Mende people, how they resisted. And I think about those, again, in South Africa, the Zulu and many other ethnic groups that put up vicious fights and won many times. But again, when you're up against a gun and a bomb, and then you have, people, internal people seeking to destroy what's going on, it makes things a challenge. But my point with this, though, is that I think about the ones who fought and the ones who died. And the ones who fought and died, even during those times and up until recent times, did not fight and die for their descendants to become passive. They did not fight and die for them to say, oh, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Steal my stuff, steal my house, steal my clothes, steal everything. If you take my tunic, I'll give them a shirt to you. If you smack me in the face, they smack me again. Those people didn't die for that. And what I hear from many people is this blatant disrespect for those who bled and died on the continent for the liberation of their people. And many of us are descendants of those people. And so when people tell you to be quiet and go hush and all of that, if you do that, now you allow their spirit, their strong personality to push you down instead of allowing the inspiration from those who were willing to give their lives so that their descendants could perhaps have a better journey. Now, with that said, flip side to America, because I'll hear people in America say, man, them Africans, man, Africa can't do nothing for me. Them Africans sold us, them Africans don't like us. I'm not gonna do that because I'm gonna disrespect my ancestors in America. They bled and died in America. Why is I going over to Africa? See, and I get why people think like that, because that conditioning comes in again. One of the things I know about my ancestors in America, and this is the brilliant part about being a part of the African diaspora, because you can claim both. And you can claim the brilliance of both. And the one thing I know about those who are part of the African diaspora, and because I come from America, I can speak for that culture, is that there's a resilience that I see on both sides. When I'm in Nigeria and I just fit in and I see that Nigerian swag And you know, people talk trash about Nigeria, but you know, once you really get in there, if you got your own, you know, if you got a strong pair with you, you can roll with the big boys. If you got a strong pair, but you got to have a strong pair with you though, brothers and sisters. But when I'm down in South Africa, and you see how in South Africa they understood what it took to fight, and so when you fight, and I'm not saying, I mean, you fight different ways. And I'll talk about the different ways to fight in a moment. But I look at this and I see this resilience in America, and how my ancestors in America went through stuff I would never even understand. I can't even remotely understand what chattel slavery was like. I can't even remotely understand what it's like to come through the civil rights movements and be called nigger every day, and held back in my face, telling you, boy, get out of here, dogs and hoses and all of that. My life as a Gen Xer has been simple, easy in comparison to those who paved the way before. And so I give them, those recent ancestors and those who spent 400 years in America, and even my ancestors in other parts in Brazil and places where 500 years ago, and all of what they've endured in the Caribbean and what they endured. We don't know how all of these ties come together. But one thing I do know is this, is that on both sides, they did not bleed and die. Now, of course, you had suckers and punks and weak people and all of that, just like the ones we have today. But I'm talking about the strong ones who fought. The ones in America who bled and died and sacrificed so that I could have the opportunities that I have today. I have no excuse to not take advantage of every opportunity in front of me. I have no excuse to not, me getting on a plane and being afraid to fly somewhere is a really poor excuse when it compares to the sacrifice that they made, especially when I have the opportunity in front of me. When I have all of the access to the education, all of the access to the different resources, I have no excuse, and I can only speak for myself. And once I shifted my mindset to understand it, that is when I said, no, there's no way that I can just sit here and ignore what I see. Now, all right, there's the wind blowing a little bit, the wind blowing a little bit. And there's no way that I should lose the ability to fight and to be able to stand up and call things the way that I see them. Now, some people don't agree with it, and I tell people all the time, just show me the facts. Just show me the facts. You can call me all types of names. You can call me ignorant. You can call me arrogant. You can call me whatever you want to call me. But show me the facts. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. There's no, again, I say all the time, if I'm wrong, just show me, hey, you know what, my bad, I'm learning, hey, cool. But just because you say something isn't true doesn't mean that it's not. And so that's just that little piece right there. So when I look at both sides of those who fought, not those who cower over and kumbaya, hakuna matata, when I look at that, I say to myself, there's a segment of the population that also understands this too. And I said this in my talk yesterday, the masses, this is not for the masses. The masses are not the ones who embrace these types of messages because of the level, the indoctrination level is too strong. The education system has them by a stronghold. The religious system has them by a stronghold. So it takes those who are willing to, I'm going to put my feet right here to brace it. It takes those who are willing to stand up to the status quo, do their own internal due diligence, and as a result, their lives improved. See, my life improved when my mindset shifted, and I stopped allowing people to think for me and tell me how to think, and this is how you should live your life, and this is what you should do. And when people would tell me, you need to get back on your American plantation, and you need to stop going to Africa. I gave them the pink TV. Y'all, if anybody know on Instagram, that pink TV, that I'm not gonna sing it, and I'm not gonna say it. Just type in Pink TV on Instagram, and it'll say it for you. And that's what I say to people. Now, let's do this. When something happened in the 60s that I believe made us soft in America and in many parts of Africa. And in many ways, it caused us to become a headless generation. So even though we have access to all of these different things globally, and I'll say this much about us as African Americans, if you took the cumulative wealth of all African Americans, we would be the 13th, 14th wealthiest country in the world. But most of us don't know that. And so we have been conditioned through the media and through conversations that we're broke, we're busted, we're disgusted, we don't have resources. And that's a mentality. But when you understand what we really have access to, then that begins to tell a different story. And it's once I began to understand what I had access to, then things started to change. Once I understood that I could go into the bank today, and yeah, maybe they might have some discriminatory practices. Of course they do. We saw with the predatory lending that occurred in the mid-2000s with the housing crisis. We know that this stuff still happens. But if we're educated and we're educating ourselves about what's going on, then we learn how to navigate those different things, and then we can start leveraging the little bit that we have in the system, which is really a lot, to our advantage. And so when we start understanding the power that we have, that's a weapon. I'll talk about that in a second. But all right, this is good. I'll talk a little bit about African Americans, and then I'll tie it over to Africa. Now, a lot of people like to mock African Americans. Y'all have an identity crisis. Y'all got problems. Y'all are bitter and filled with hate and all that kind of stuff. And I say to myself, well, not one time do I hear someone say, well, if that's what you believe, based upon a snapshot of 43 to 47 million people that are as diverse as the continent of Africa. So my point is, you're taking a small sample. Maybe you're looking at something on TV. Maybe you watch somebody rant on a YouTube video and have deducted that all African Americans, or the majority of African Americans, think the same way. Well, let me tell you, as being one, I can tell you that everybody does not think the same way. And everybody has their own perspectives. And again, just as diverse as the continent of Africa. But one thing that I look at, which is a interesting theme, is that many African Americans deal with it from all angles. So they deal with the white supremacy system in America, and so that hits them. But then they also deal with the black crabs who try to hold them down. So they'll be getting it from both sides. So it forces you, if you're strong, it forces you to learn how to fight. And it forces you to learn how to navigate a little bit differently, because you're getting it from all angles. You're getting it from a system that has been, the inception of the country was designed to make sure that the African stayed a permanent labor force. And at every turn within this system, any advance would try to be thwarted, burned down, bombed, sunken, some sort of coup d'etat, and that would be internal coup d'etats, black organizations infiltrated, bugs, spies, all kinds of things happening to defeat any advancements that these strong people were trying to do. And so what you would notice is that those strong people, the leaders, would somehow either find themselves in jail or dead. And that same thing would occur in Africa. Independence in Africa, in the civil rights movement in America and other parts of the world were really kind of running side by side. And you would see where they would be working hand in hand. There were times, a lot of people don't know in America, that Martin Luther King, when Ghana gained its perceived independence in 57, Martin Luther King was there. Kwame Nkrumah, Martin Luther King were friends. Kwame Nkrumah, he went to Lincoln University, and I believe he also went to University of Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. Correct me if I am. But he also was a Sigma. So he understood, Kwame Nkrumah understood how to navigate politically and did it quite well. Whether you approve of his political views or whatever, he was definitely a master politician and understood how to navigate. But when it comes to African Americans, that's one thing that we have dealt with and we deal with. I will tell you that somebody made a joke one time, and they said, you better watch out for them Nigerians. Them Nigerians are scammers. I said, let me tell you something. I said, I deal with a whole lot of African Americans. And I said, some of the biggest scammers in the world who got the most game in the world are African Americans in the church. I said, so, hey, it is what it is. So some of what you see and maybe what you hear is where people just have a low tolerance for foolishness. And many African Americans are just not complacent. And the other part of it is we have been trained in their system. We have been raised by them. So for many of us, when people mock identity crisis without understanding that there was an intentional effort to strip everything African from us and to turn us basically into like a type of Frankenstein, a confused Frankenstein, to basically continue to build up their wealth. But what they didn't count on was that those that they took who survived the crossing of the Atlantic, whether it be Brazil, Caribbean, Americas, what they didn't count on was the strength of those people and their descendants. And so what you see is a result of that. And that's why you see many of us who are saying, nah, we're not going for that. And same thing for those who are on the continent of Africa. You'll see many people in South Africa saying, no, we're not going for that. Hector Peterson. And you see that whole movement, civil rights movement in South Africa. And you see many of the rebellions in Nigeria and all throughout. I mean, just different parts of Africa. Even in the east side, you will see different uprisings to say we're not standing for the status quo. But what happened during that time is that eventually, as they started picking off the leaders and the different presidents who tried to go in a different direction, started killing them, started using their own people to kill them, all these different things, it created a weak generation or a weak mindset. Because now you have Gen Xers who are largely disconnected from it, who largely grew up in a semi-computer age, semi-comfortable age, semi-colonized education age, and we put our guards down. And without even understanding it, we just put them down. We just say, oh, that's old news. Slavery's over. Colonization's over. Let's move on. We have to be diplomatic now. And without understanding the theft that occurred, and it still occurs. So because of that, these people know, exactly how this system has played out. And I look at it and I say to myself, it's amazing when I get and I read some of the comments. Like one dude was like, stop itching and complaining and put some solutions up. Stop itching and complaining and such, take responsibility. And I say, Negro, that's what we're doing. We're educating one another. So unless you got a YouTube channel, stop flapping your simple yap and do something. So that's what people are doing by having conversations, because the weapons that we deal with now are weapons of the mind. And so whenever, people chime in I call them YouTube police, armchair YouTube critics sitting back playing with themselves, but they got a comment with half-cocked information. And so pay close attention, because what's happening is that there are more and more people waking up, and they're using the platforms to educate people about what has happened and what is happening. And so that's a beautiful thing to see. And so it doesn't mean you want to agree with everyone, but at least we're not sitting in a stupor. And I'm glad to see people who are waking up in Gen X and starting conversations and not giving people a pass. And this doesn't mean, because you're doing this, doesn't mean that you hate white people. I tell people all the time, there's no way I could hate white people, because if it weren't for white people, I would not be who I am today, because there were black people who were supposed to be involved in my life doing certain things, and they were absent. And there were white people who were not white saviors, who didn't come along and say, feel pity for Jay. There were genuine white people who loved Jay, welcomed me into their homes, and gave me experiences that I would cherish for the rest of my life. And those people are dear to me. But it does not change the fact that we're dealing with a white supremacy system. And so if someone's mind is so finite that they can't separate a system from an individual, then that goes to speak to another level of a problem that is unfortunate. But when we talk about it, and they say, well, y'all are filled with hate and bitterness because y'all are talking about this topic, we're dealing with a system that's affecting them too. But they have been castrated. Their heads have been cut off. And so they can't see it, or they choose to ignore it. But yet they complain. And what they do is they point their fingers at the African government. The African presidents did such and such. Well, who is voting these presidents in there? If all the presidents are corrupt, who's voting them in? Who's voting them in? If the presidents of the United States are corrupt, who's voting them in? Unless somebody's installing them. Now, this is what I said. I said, for me, I would not disgrace the legacy of those who fought on both sides of the Atlantic, by becoming passive. And I'm going to make sure that now that I am awakening, and I awaken a little bit more every day, then I'm going to take advantage of every opportunity. When I got my Sierra Leone citizenship, there were Negroes mocking that. And I said, these simple Negroes probably don't even have a passport. However, let me explain it like this. My blue passport will take me all over the world, but my green passport will take me all over West Africa without the need for a visa. So now I can go to places and don't have to get all the stamps on my blue passport, because I have my green passport, and I can go enrich and educate myself and immerse myself in the culture and go to places where they told me and demonize these places. Now I can go to these places and learn and become a part of understanding more of the story, because I'm now taking advantage of every opportunity that's afforded to me. So when you begin to start understanding it from that perspective, that took a mindset shift. Because for so long I wasn't even interested in West Africa. I wasn't interested anywhere in Africa, scared to come to Africa. And so what I say to people is that when you have an opportunity, take advantage of it, because life is too short. And this is why I bring people to Africa and African diaspora destinations, because life is too short. I know people who've lived and died wanted to go to Africa, but because a mental block was there. It wasn't even finances. Man, people wasting money on all kinds of things. Could have been to Africa many times over. Been down to the Caribbean 20 times. Been on the cruise 20 times. Surely could have been to Africa. But there was something programmed. There was a block, and most people don't even understand what it is. And so that's why I keep encouraging to say, hey, don't let a long flight keep you from broadening your perspective and changing you as a person. Because I came here and saw and see I've changed as a person. And it's almost like I tapped into something, and it's like, yo, let's do this thing. It's like I'm in Morocco right now. Would have never thought. And I'm not here on the European tip either. I'm here because I just want to see. All right, cool. And maybe this would be someplace we'll do a tour. I don't know. We'll see. But What I won't do is disgrace my grandmother, who worked at her beauty salon for nearly 70 years and provided me all kinds of opportunities to learn. She paid for me to take a correspondence course for me to learn how to start working on small engines. She bought me my first computer. She bought me an organ so I could learn how to practice playing on the keys. She would sit outside and make sure that I was able to, at football practice, she would make sure I got to football practice. I will not disgrace her legacy by shutting down and being timid and being afraid and making excuses for piss poor productivity. I refuse to do it because I watched her work too hard. She traveled some, but she never saw the continent of Africa. But that's all right, because guess what? Her sacrifice and my grandfather's sacrifice paved the way for me to be able to do it. So when I start thinking about that, I say, you know what? I have no choice. I will not disgrace their legacy because I'm sitting around conjuring up craziness in my own mind because of what someone else had to say. I'm going to take advantage of everything when it comes to starting up businesses and opportunities. If it comes to my mind, guess what? I'm going to do it because somebody bled, died on both sides of the Atlantic in order for me to be able to do it. And so, and just for my folks in East Africa, I have almost 10% Kenyan DNA. So just to let you know, and that's one of the things about African Americans and people who are part of the African diaspora is like we're a melting pot. So if you know, some people, well, I don't know if that's true, whatever. I know it because I did the family tree. I know the European side. I know the African side. I know all the different breakdowns in it. And so that's just one of the things that we can do, we can partake of, and we can claim. But again, people don't want you to do that. At every turn, they want to dismiss it. They want to dismiss it. They want to dismiss it. And so because they want to dismiss it, and if you allow them to, that's what I'm saying. Don't allow people to let you dismiss what is in your heart and what is in you to do. Now, if you don't want to do it, then don't do it. But I'm talking to the person who does. Do not let small-minded people push you away from what it is that you want to do, and especially if it's something that's honorable and helps everyone elevate and go to another level. Let's see. All right, I can wrap it up with this. There are many Gen Xers. Oh, there are a lot of, I want to shout out to my baby boomers. And this is for people who are 65 and over, I guess. A lot of them comment. They say, some people into their 80s, they're like, you're saying everything I've been thinking. And so just know, I know you're out there. I read your comments. I thank you. I thank you for your sacrifice. Just know that it has not gone unnoticed, and that I'm going to do everything I can to, you might not be an ancestor. You are a legend right now. And so just know that I see it, other people see it on both sides of the Atlantic, and we're not out here going to disgrace you by being passive and soft and ignoring the facts that are in front of us, and giving a pass to systems that continue to steal, kill, and destroy. Here's some solutions, and I'll give it to you like this. Here's some solutions. There are many in this new generation who are willing to fight with real knowledge and not this watered-down, pseudo-colonized education. Get the colonized education so you go get that paper. You know, my term, some people, I say pimp that hoe. Pimp the education hoe, pimp whatever. You do what you got to do. Use it the same way they're going to use you. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. These corporations called countries will use you, so use them for all of their worth. And, you know, however you got to do it, if you got to stand there and smile, you know, or whatever, use them for what it's worth so that you can continue to move forward and do what you need to do. But the first weapon, because some people say, well, what do we do? Well, you're certainly not going to do it militarily. That's foolish to think that you're going to do something militarily where they have nuclear weapons, AK-47s, and all of that. The biggest weapon that you have is your mind. And a changed mindset is what's going to propel you to the next level. If you're willing to change your mindset, if you're willing to adjust how you think and reposition yourself, that's step number one. The weapon of education. And again, like I said, get the colonized education, do whatever you got to do with the degrees to get the money or whatever. Just be smart with it. And don't go into debt to do it. Don't go into massive student loan debt. That's slavery. Wherever, and they're starting to introduce that stuff here in Africa. So people are getting trapped by it. There's so many ways to get around it. And that's one of the things that I talk about. I've helped thousands of people avoid student loan debt and get the same degree without any debt. And so I encourage you to go and avoid that, but still get the knowledge, but get global education, get street knowledge, get cultural knowledge, enrich yourself on that level, because that's what's going to propel you to that next level when you get that type of knowledge in your system. Because you'll say, okay, I got a degree, but if I don't know how to navigate these streets, like coming to Africa, if you don't understand how to navigate these streets and you think you're just gonna show up and, hey, I'm here and I'm African American. Hey, buddy. Nah, you got to come in here like you understand some things too, and you got to respect the culture. And so when you come in and you respect people's culture, then you can navigate differently and you take care of folks. But that's not something, that's something you got to develop and have an appreciation for the people. And if you take care of the people, you're going to deal with some foolishness at some point along the way. But if you get the right people on your team, then you'll be all right. So get a real world education in addition to your paper education, and constantly educate yourself. And please learn about these global systems. I said it before, please study imperialism. Please don't think that stuff is over. If somebody tells you that it's over, then they're just revealing their level of ignorance or complacency or castration or something. Imperialism is happening all over the world to this day. Many of the ethnic conflicts are happening right now because of imperialism. Much of what you see going on in Ukraine is because of imperialism. I did a whole talk on it. Everybody's thinking one way, but if you look at it from a different perspective, you'll understand exactly what's happening. The next thing is this, the weapon of economics. All you can do is manage your own resources. So if you really spend time understanding financial management and how to best manage your money, whether it's a little bit of money or a lot of money, if you do the right things with it, it can multiply. And that's nothing anybody can stop. So there's certain things that are just going to happen if you take the principles and apply them to what you're doing. If you're willing to do that, then you can find yourself changing your financial situation. I can't put a time frame on it. And I know somebody wants to make an excuse. I can hear an excuse coming, but yeah, but what if you can't? What if you can't? What if you can't? Everybody's situation is different. I'm just saying, whether you have 1 rand, 1 CD, $1, manage that one well and continue to learn and educate yourself as it pertains to global economics, and develop an attitude of mental toughness. Don't take no for an answer. So often I hear people say, well, they didn't give me an opportunity and they didn't do this. That's not how I live. I used to live like that, but I don't live like that anymore. I say, you know what? I'm going to do what I need to do. And if I get a no, so what? And what that will do is wind starting to blow. Make sure it don't blow over. What that will do is who you become as a result of adversity or challenges or being told no. That builds your character. So some people just want things to be handed to them. And that's what I admire about so many people in Africa, because I watch them hustle. And I said, wow, if they ever had the opportunity to put the resources with the hustle, there would be no stopping. But the imperial global systems want to make sure that they work every day for very little just to keep the system alive while they come in and profit and put the little shops up along the road. And the Chinese put the people in the debt system, selling all of the things in the market that are from China, and put them in a debt system. And this is happening on a local level in many parts of Africa. But somehow I'm wrong. Somehow in Ethiopia, when I went to Ethiopia, and I said, well, look, I want to go someplace that's not selling Chinese, Ethiopian souvenirs. Oh, the guy laughed. He said, you're going to be hard-pressed to find that. Now, somebody would try to gaslight me and tell me, he didn't tell me that, but I know exactly what I saw, I know exactly what I heard. And so when somebody says, well, imperialism and colonization is over, I'm like, okay, go to that spot in Ethiopia and tell them people that. The next thing is this, the weapon of individual choices. And each family has to make a determination about their own choices and what they're going to do. Each family, each person. There's this thing that I see in America, I see it in Africa, where we feel as though we're responsible for other people's poor choices. And so if you're going to fund other people's poor choices, you will never get ahead. You will never get ahead. And you will continue to enable people, and they will never grow up. So if you feel as though so-and-so does such and such, and I'm not saying helping one time or two times or something like that, but if it's just a culture to somebody messes everything up and you're the one bailing everybody out, you'll always be struggling. And you'll never be in a real position to help someone. And so it's just, it's a choice that each person makes. But just know, as long as you fund someone else's foolishness, then you'll always be trying to figure out how to get ahead. Once I stopped funding people's foolishness, I could get ahead. And then at that point, I was even in a better position to instruct them when they finally matured and came to their senses. And I'm not going to go into all the different stories about how I had to tell people no when they came asking me for money and all of that. But I'll say this much. There were times where I had to put my foot down, which probably would not have been received well in a lot of different places. But as a result, what ended up happening is that those very people appreciated my denial of support in that moment, and when they needed it later, it was there. So they always tell you on the airplane, put your own mask on first so that you can make sure you're taken care of so you can help someone else. I kind of see that in the reverse in many cultures in America and in Africa, where everybody's expending themselves to the point where they have nothing, and then they're just feeling sorry in the end. For the person who's willing to break out of that, you'll likely find yourself in a much better position. All I'll say is this, and I'm done. When you lose the ability to fight, you give someone else control over your finances, over your career, and really over your mind. So I say to the people out there who see what's going on, it first begins with how you think. You can't change the whole system. I'm not even trying to change the whole system. I'll wear myself out. I just put the information out there. For those who want to hear it, cool, run with it. For those who want to dismiss it, dismiss it. But I'm thinking about the one. I may never see the one, but the one who may come across something, a deposit that was left, and they understand, wait a minute, this thing is a game. And I don't want to play the game like that. And I'm going to handle my own business. And I'm going to do better for myself. And I'm going to avoid massive student loan debt because I don't want to set myself back 25 years before I can even get into the financial game. I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to get good grades so I can take advantage of the economic resources that come with scholarships and grants. I'm going to start a business, and I'm going to leverage this land. There's all of this land that we have. Why can't we start a pineapple farm? Or why can't we start a mango farm? Why can't we start a cocoa farm? Why can't we do these different things? I'm going to start learning how to tell people no, and when they expect for me to fund their foolishness. I'm going to position myself differently. And as a result, I'm going to change my circumstances. I'm not going to worry about what everyone else is doing. And when the chatterboxes come in, I'll block them out. I'm going to have tunnel vision. I'm going to stay the course, and I'll let my results speak for themselves. So that's the one person that I'm speaking to. So I want to definitely send my respect and my acknowledgement to all of the ancestors that I have no clue, the thousands of ancestors in my genetic line from the African continent who sacrificed, who paid dues I'll never know. And I'm sure I had some shady ones in there too. I know I got some shady ones in my immediate family. But I'm talking about the ones who stood up and fought. And so just know that their efforts, even though I don't know, I just know that somebody had to live in order for me to be here. And I will not disgrace their legacy talking about let bygones be bygones when the same system of theft, murder, and lies is in place. We use our weapons of education, mindset, economics, and personal changes, personal choices, and you'll be amazed at the groundswell that can happen on a stealth level. Don't need a big movement, don't need big marches and any of that. If everybody starts shifting their mindset, it'll happen gradually. So anyway, Maximum Impact with Jay Cameron coming to you from Marrakesh in Morocco as I am here on my journey, bridging the gap between Africa and the African diaspora. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share as we continue to have these conversations. And boy, I can't wait to meet some of you as I'm on the journey and on my travels. And again, thank you again. Please, again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, take care, be safe.